Welcome to another episode of PNE Pod, the official podcast of the one and only Preston North End Football Club. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss when a new episode is released. My name's Niall McCorn.
And I'm Neil Mellor. We'll be talking to some North End legends, some current first team players, some famous fans of North End, and also some former teammates of mine.
And today we're talking to someone who has got a decorated career in the game, both as a player and as a coach, and actually finished his playing days at North End Mells and transitioned into a coach whilst at Deepdale. And he says he's got a lot to thank Preston for when it comes to that.
Yeah, interesting, because he was talking about how his career ended at North End. He's played in an FA Cup final. He's played with Gaza, Keegan, some absolute legends of the game. But the fact that North End had such an impact on him, he finished there and has lived here ever since.
And he's gone on to coach pretty much everywhere, to be fair, including in places like Sweden, which was interesting to hear him talk about.
Got a few stories about that in India as well. I mean, if you look at the clubs he's coached, there must be near 20 clubs he's been at, but had a real good experience and influence on so many players.
Okay, well, let's get right into it. Here's our chat with former Preston player and coach Neil McDonald.
What about Gaza? I mean, how good was he?
Mid-80s
this year?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Well, I grew up with him. I was a year older than him. You know, sometimes when you're playing a team, you take people under your wing. I took him under my wing. Daft as a brush, the nicest person you'll ever meet, the kindest person you'll ever meet. But obviously he had his demons.
Even back then?
Even back then, food was one of them. Eat anything, eat rubbish, didn't look after himself properly, but give him a ball, my goodness me, he could play. He actually had 9 points on his provisional before he even passed his test. I've been in a car with him before where he couldn't get out of a car park space, and the police knocked on the window and said, right, back up, because they knew who he was. And then he eventually got out. And the last time, he had a little Mini, and it started to rain. His windscreen wipers weren't working. He used to stick his head out the window and try his car. He said, Paul, Gaza, just drop me off here, mate. I'll get the bus back.
Did you
home.
know he had 9 points before you got in his car?
He taught.
He still got in his car?
Yeah.
What was the fame like, though, for back then? You're saying Keegan, but Gaza in particular.
Gaza just found everything as a almost a game. Didn't take much too seriously. Obviously, he was getting all the plaudits, wasn't he, and stuff like that because of his performances on the pitch. Now, off the pitch, you know, it all depends on who you grew up with. I know he had Jimmy Gardner, Five Bellies, as he was called, looked after him. He was his best mate. But he needed good people around him to try and point him in that direction, you know. And I'm not so sure he had that at the time. So he was carefree.
I thought you said you took him under your wing.
Yeah, well, you can only do too much. He lived at Gateshead, I lived in Wallsend, you know. So, no, fantastic lad, fantastic player. Probably one of the best ones we've produced.
Did you ever keep in touch with him throughout his career?
Yeah, it was. The last time I seen him was I think I was at Blackburn as assistant manager with Sam Allardyce, and we played Spurs, and that's when Bill Nicholson had died, and some of the old players were there, and he was standing in front of me, and I nipped him. He hadn't seen me. I nipped him. Yeah, how are you doing? He went, "What you doing here?" I says, "I'm the bloody assistant manager at Blackburn." And then I spoke to him afterwards in the coach's room afterwards, and that was the first time I'd spoke to him for quite a while. He was talking about going into coaching. He was talking about still trying to play maybe as a player coach and stuff like that. He was just asking about what you had to do as a coach, what you had to do, and I'm thinking, my goodness me, if he's asking me, he's got no chance. But he just, in the end, from looking from afar, considering I've known him from a young kid, he just couldn't let go. He had to be in the limelight all the time, and that was the worrying thing for me, that he just couldn't let go and just become Paul Gascoigne instead of Paul Gascoigne, the footballer.
Later that year, you moved to Oldham, helped the club survive in the Premier League for a couple of seasons, and after a short spell at Bolton, you arrive at North End. You come to Deepdale. How much did you know about PNE before you signed?
I didn't, to tell you the truth. I think at that stage in my career, all I wanted to do was play football, and I wasn't playing at Bolton, just a support player, and that wasn't me to a certain extent. I'd been used to playing on a regular basis. So I think Gary Peters, who was the manager at the time, had come to watch me play in a few reserve team games. I always did the right thing. Never used to chuck my toys out the pram. If I was playing, that's what I was getting paid for. That's what I always used to say to myself, whether it's a reserve team game, whether it's a youth team game, whether it's a first team game, that's what you get paid for, so you got to do it properly. Must have impressed him enough. He made the phone call. He said to me, I actually can't believe that you want to come here, or I've got you. I want you to come and help me finish the promotion off. It was well into the season at the time, and when I came, hopefully I made a little contribution to make sure that Preston got promoted. And the following season, started taking under 13 team off my own back as a coach in my own spare time in the academy. Obviously, must have done all right because a lot of the parents was going back to the club saying, "My goodness me, Neil's really, really good. I got the manager wants to see you to a certain extent." Right, okay. This was coming to the end of the season or before the transfer deadline, and he says, "Wigan have come in for you, but I'm not going to let you go." And I says, "Well, why not? Because you're not playing me at the time." And as I say, all I want to do is play 30, 31, 32 at the time. And he said, "I'm going to sack my youth team coach, and I want you to have the job." I went, "Oh, right, okay, I wasn't expecting that at all. Go home, have a day to think about it, and then come back and tell me." I went, "Right, okay." So I sat down and I thought, well, am I going to go play 20, 30 games somewhere else in the next 2 or 3 years? I've just had 16, 17 years of playing at top level football all the time. Oh, let's have a go at this. Didn't have no qualifications whatsoever, so I went on the C licence, I went on the B licence, A licence, I've got the pro licence, I've got a certificate in man management from a university. So later in life I've qualified myself to do the job properly. But he said, "Right, okay, I still want you to be a player, so you're going to have to manage your time and still be available," which is really, really difficult, to be fair. I tried to do it, played a couple of games, but then really enjoyed the coaching. I used to take a team when I was actually at Newcastle for the first ever time. It's 17 called West Allotment every Thursday. We used to go in the big gym at Benwell, and I used to take them just for training sessions and stuff like that. So I think that was always in me to definitely be a coach. And when the chance come, I jumped at it.
Coaching's in you, but I just want to rewind to signing for Preston, and the reason being, you've played at the top level all your career and done very well. You've dropped down to where Preston were in Division 3. So it wasn't a case of a team that are maybe knocking on the door to get in the top league. Preston were Division 3. As much as things were starting to move in the right direction, there must have been other clubs that are coming in for you, maybe higher up, Division 2 or even Division 1 at that time.
I think the manager, when he speaks to you, he tries to sell the football club and say what sort of role that you're gonna play. There was a performance role, there was a leadership role, there was a inspiring role to a certain extent because of the level that I had played at, and that quite impressed me, to be fair. Plus as well, they were almost there, so it wasn't an impossible task for me to come into the football club and not change everything. But
you came in November, didn't you? So
yeah, came in.
Still a long part of the season.
Yeah, still a long way to go, I suppose. And then getting to know the players, getting to know the way the manager wanted to play, getting to know what the opposition were like, because I'd never played at that level before. You know, so that was all the adjustments.
Was it easy?
That I had to, yeah, I would say it was, yeah. But it was probably more physical when I think back. You know, maybe I wasn't as mobile as what I was when I was a little bit younger, but I knew where to go, I knew what to do, I knew when to pass, knew when to close down and stuff like that. So I think that's part of being a coach as well, trying to work out stuff. But
so it must have been a good group though, because that group. What was the unbeaten run? 21 games unbeaten. Yeah, that season.
I'm still really, really good friends with Ian Bryson, who was here. He was the skipper. Graham Atkinson. There's a couple of others. David Lucas might have been one of the goalkeepers and stuff like that. So I still keep in touch with a lot of them. And obviously, I've been living in Preston for 25 years. I see them every now and again. I do the odd golf dues, and I've done a couple of talks for Preston. So I'm still heavily involved. I like coming to watch the games. I've done games not for Preston but for Radio Lancs, reporting on Preston. I've done reporting on Preston for Radio London, who I do a lot of the games, the Premiership teams and the Championship teams who come up to the Northwest. So I'm classed as the northern southern correspondent for BBC Radio. Yes, I am. I've been doing that for 7 years. 7 or 8 years, and I really enjoy that side because it's just talking about the game, not trying to paint the picture as the commentators trying to paint the picture. It's just filling in how a player feels, on how the coaching side's going, what the game, trying to figure out what the game plan is, what should the manager do next. So I've got all of that experience, and just to talk about just on radio is so good.
What was the relationship like with the fans, the Preston fans, when you arrived?
As I said to you before, I wasn't the one for the limelight. I'm not the one for social media. I'm not the one to push out. I just wanted to play football. Now that may be a little bit naive. I never got involved with.
You don't want to hear your name chanted.
Well, it didn't really bother me. I had a.
That's a centre forward thing, I think.
I had a yeah. Well, it might be. But you know, my performance was. I was highly critical of myself. If I didn't play well, then I knew I didn't play well. I didn't need anybody else to tell me that I didn't play well, or I didn't need anybody to tell me, "Wow, you played really well there," because I used to say to myself, "Yeah, I did." So that was the scenario. So that's exactly what I'm like as a coach and being a manager. I've never chased the limelight whatsoever. I just prefer to do the job and then start the next year.
What were some of the good games? I've written down some of the games against Blackpool, Burnley. Means a lot to the supporters, those games.
Yeah,
remember a few of them?
Certainly the Blackpool game. I think we won. Did we end up winning that game 3-1?
You never won away.
Never. Well,
you won at home.
As long as we won at home, that was the main thing. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? Especially rivalries. You have to win the home games, don't you? And put a good performance away from home. But that was certainly really.
Did you feel that rivalry? Because you've been at Newcastle, at Everton, played in some big games.
I think you do playing in derbies. You certainly do feel that rivalry, and it almost would I be fair to say that it was almost like a Newcastle Sunderland derby, where it wasn't like a friendly one like Liverpool versus Everton. The rivalry was there. They hate each other. They don't like each other, do they?
I always felt it was different for the warm-up. I'd go out the warm-up now when we're playing Blackpool thinking, different mood inside the stadium here. And you had to get involved to know it was different. It meant more. Well,
of course, yes, because you've got supporters who maybe go to work together. One supports Blackpool, one supports Preston. They're not well spread, are they? It's just only a couple of miles up the road. So you have a responsibility to try and make that person feel really good for the rest of the week and for the rest of the 6 months before the next time they play. And then the pressure starts coming on again. Right, we're going to beat you because you beat us last time. But it's always good. It's always good beating your rivals. Obviously, listen, in the future, I'll become Blackpool manager. Whether that went against me, I'm not 100% sure. But
did it or not? Because that was a different. That was a different time, wasn't it?
There's other circumstances which I could actually go in and talk to you all day about.
But there was social media. So you've gone at Blackpool 2015-16 season. And football is a different place, isn't it? Social media, the Blackpool fans, East Preston. Was there an element of that to start with or not?
Well, like I said to you before, I don't get involved in social media. I've never ever been on social media. I leave that to my kids, to be fair.
Just as well.
Never really get involved. As I say, I never really looked at what other people were saying. It was either I'm doing the right thing or I'm not doing the right thing. How do I actually do that? And ask the people that I trust on, how can I adjust this? How can I do that? Without outsiders who, I used to. It's not a horrible thing to say, I used to be a footballer, how did you play for? I didn't play for anybody. I just, I'm saying, well, you didn't actually play football, and did you? So do you actually know what we're going through? At the same time, I can't comprehend what a supporter thinks, because even though I've grown up with football, I've never been a supporter of one team.
Neil Mellor scored. Preston take the lead, and that's exactly what it means to Neil Mellor to score in the West Lancashire derby.